Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America. Our guest today is Sophia Victor, an activist, artist, and professor at the School of Visual Arts. Her powerful work was captured the attention of celebrities worldwide and has been featured by Fortune 500 companies. Sophia is here with me to discuss her latest solo exhibition, currently on view at the Bishop Gallery, titled Ecclesia.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me today. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited to be here.
Right. Well, your work is really, really so beautiful and so moving, all of it. And the title of your show, it comes a biblical reference.
Yeah, so the word ecclesia, it's in the Bible, is the Greek word for church or the gathering. And this exhibition is really special to me because it's the first time that I'm really incorporating my story into my work. I've been telling other people's stories for over 20 years, and the show really talks about not just my story, but also how faith, how my walk with God, how my desire to serve people through my art has brought me on this journey as an artist from beginning up until now, over 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that because you're always, and I must say that, I'm inspired by your forthright thanking God for the gift that you've been given to be able to translate people who cannot talk for themselves through your art. You are telling their stories. You have been until now, and we're so eager to hear. Start with your story in terms of how your faith has impacted your work.
Okay, so, if I'll be quite honest, I did not necessarily start off wanting to be an artist. I really wanted to do acting. I wanted to do drama. I used to play clarinet, and I went to LaGuardia High School, which was a great school,
Right.
But I wanted to be a drama major or a music major, and I only got into art, and I even credit that. I start by saying that because I have to credit the fact that I even stumbled upon my gift to God, because if it was up to me, I would have never picked up a paintbrush. But I only got into the art program, and then even though I planned to switch my major, I was excelling in all my art classes and I never switched anything. And by sophomore year, we had to paint for the first time, and that was when God revealed to me that I had a gift. And shortly after that, my dad enrolled me into a mural program, which still exists in Brooklyn, called Groundswell. And so I went from working like really small to transforming community center walls, working with children, finding out what they wanted to see in their spaces, and learning that, this gift could go beyond just a canvas, but actually can have an impact. And so that was like my intro to art, and then that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
But
Yeah.
really in such meaningful ways, so you working your portraits, you say you do mostly in acrylic. Interesting, I didn't know that oil was not good when you were expecting your baby.
Yeah, so oil paint is really not good to be breathing in without the proper air ventilation, and so whenever I don't necessarily have a space with the best
Ventilation,
window, I stick to acrylics.
Acrylic, but so you do the acrylic portraits, these huge murals that you do in restaurants and on public buildings and et cetera. But you also do the performance and the video and the sound, and now we understand sculpture.
Yeah.
So
So every story has the right way to go about telling it. I feel most comfortable with paint, but then every now and then I'll be inspired to add something just so that the story can get across, just so that people don't miss it. I started incorporating audio just so that the voices of the people in my painting could be heard, especially, when I was working with political prisoners. Well, it's an ongoing project until everybody comes home. 2010, I started to write letters to different individuals from the Black Panther movement who were politically incarcerated. That turned into me going to visit them. That turned into me working with their family members to raise money for their commissary, raise money for their legal defense, using my art as a fundraising tool. And I guess it got to a point like, like even the painting behind us with Dr. Matulu Shakur, who unfortunately passed away after he came home. When the Bronx Museum was open to me showing a piece and his piece was chosen, I was like, well, on the phone with him, like, what do you want to say? Your face might become in front of thousands of people. If you could speak to the audience, what would you say? And so in that installation, he wrote a letter specifically to people who were coming to the exhibit, talking about who he is, saying how they could support. And so every now and then there's just like another element that's needed, but I do love installation. I think that people get a better understanding of a story when they're in an immersive experience. So
Right. And now you were corresponding with some of those incarcerated and published them as a book. But it was written under your
yes.
single name.
Yes, correspondence. It was published before I got married under Sophia Dawson, and it has about 8 years of letters written to me from, 30 plus people. When the project started, there were about 44 people in. By God's grace, over 17 people have come home since that project started. And these are all people who on paper were supposed to serve life sentences, double life sentences. So it's pretty miraculous what has happened. And the book was really a tool to, again, help those who are coming home have some type of means of income, have an opportunity to do book tours and talks and things of that nature, so that way they could have some.
Right, and you did work with the Exonerated Five as well.
Yes. So in 2012, when the documentary, there's a documentary called The Central Park Five.
Right.
And so that came out. It was screening in Manhattan. I didn't know anything about their case. I'm born in '88. Their case happened in '89, and I honestly thought that I was going to see a film about a Panther case.
Right.
And a friend took me, and then the same thing happened, when I learned about people who were politically incarcerated. There's this like unsettlement that happened when I walked out of that theater, and so immediately I was like, okay, what's going on now? My friend was like, well, they have court on Monday. Do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, I'll go. So I went to court with my son in his stroller, and we, at that point, their case got so popular that there was an overflow room. So we sat in the overflow, and after every court appointment, they would actually go down to Foley Square and do a level of demonstration, protest, and actually like let people know like, hey, this is what happened in the courtroom today. This is how you can support. They had megaphones. So I introduced myself. I was like, hey, I'm an artist. I'd love to help you guys and support in any way I can, tell your story through my work. And they were like, okay. But then they didn't really know who I was. So Dr. Council member now, Yusuf Salam, gave me his number. Raymond Santana, who I think is also entering into politics now, and Corey Wise.
Right, right. So you lifted their cases up, and
yes, I started their portraits. That was when Instagram was new and Facebook tagging was new.
Right.
So as I was working on it, people started tagging them, and then we decided to put together a pop-up exhibition. So there's a clothing store in Brooklyn that basically pushed all their racks to the back room, let me hang my work up.
a new gallery, so to speak.
Right.
That's great.
There
I
were
love it.
5 portraits. Dr. Yusuf came out, Raymond came out, the Innocence Project came out when they were still pretty new, with paper petitions for everybody that came to the exhibit to sign. We sold T-shirts, all the money that was raised from the paintings, the T-shirts,
Oh my goodness.
and the prints all went to support their legal defense.
That is
And then-
absolutely fantastic.
And then the turnaround, Dr. Yusuf, years later, purchased his painting and
He did.
flew me to Georgia to hang it into the house before he moved back to New York.
Right.
So he owns his portrait now.
Well, right. Well, and somebody else owns a portrait that you did from Do the Right Thing.
Yes.
Tell us about that, and then I want to talk about
Okay.
how you actually get these fantastic portraits. So
Oh
you-
my goodness. So yes, so Spike Lee is one of my newest collectors, by the grace of God. It's a true honor. My dad was freaking out when I told him because he was adamant about, making sure that we watched these films when we were kids. And
Right. And so you were a kid when you saw, I guess you must have been.
Yeah, I was a kid when I saw a lot of his films, but then once I started getting into like activism, I rewatched a lot of things as well. And the way it happened, honestly, I went to my house, my husband and I were picking up paintings for another pop-up exhibition. There's like a smaller exhibition of my work up right now at the Langston Hughes Library in Queens, Corona, Queens.
Right.
My parents have, a lot of paintings stored, and they rotate them. So when I went to pick up some other work, this painting was up on the wall, and I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was like, oh, wow. I was already posting every day for Black History Month, so I posted it, and I tagged him, and just forgot about it. And then, Spike commented on the piece, and then he started messaging me, asking me, like, inquiring about the painting. And so my husband's my studio manager. So once we shifted to that level of conversation, I introduced him to David, and the rest
Who
is
is your
history.
manager right now? I mean, so did Spike get a deal, or
Spike did get it.
okay, all right, that. But
we wanted to honor him, so we did. But
that's
but
great.
he was a huge blessing.
It is absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
It's fun.
So now talk to us about, and Spike, by the way, sat in the very seat that, he gave Black America an Emmy nomination, as I'm sure you will, the next cycle here. So we love Spike here on Black America. But talk to us about the technique, because our producer director and I were talking about how the texture and, the feeling, and a lot of it is spiritual, if maybe even purely religious, in some way, which I honor and respect, the fact that you are not in some way disguising that, but that is a part of the way you're delivering your message.
Yeah.
So how do you actually, start with like this gorgeous?
My self-portrait as a kid. How does it start? Golly. Well, I want to first say that I really enjoy making art from a healthy place. I think I've been making art long enough to know that as much as I understand the concept of artists making work out of struggle, out of misery, out of all that stuff, I really enjoy making art from a place of being full of the Holy Spirit, surrounded by love, surrounded by people that I love, with a good meal. My husband is an amazing cook, a good, well-fed
He's a pretty good
stomach.
singer as well.
Oh yeah,
right?
he's an amazing minister. He's an amazing singer, psalmist.
But most
And so,
importantly, he's a great cook.
He's
so.
a great. No, literally, I've made up my mind. I think probably when I was pregnant with my son that I want to make art from this place. This is where my best work comes from, it is highly spiritual. I'm listening to worship. I'm in worship as I'm painting. I feel like making art is an act of worship. It's me saying, like, you've given me this gift. I give it back to you by using it, just by doing it, just by showing up. Even when I'm tired, even when there's a million other things to do on my to-do list, even when the circumstances of life are having their way, I have to show up. It's the way that I honor God for what he's done for me. And then, like, technically, let's say, I guess one thing, because I teach foundation painting, and I'm constantly telling my students, you don't get to come to my class with the color black. If you're going to use black, you're going to mix your own black. You get the richest black by making your own black. Black out of the tube is never going to be the best black. Same thing with skin tones. You have to make your own skin tones. Do not bring brown to this class. Do not bring any pigment. With the paint and work it. And realize that flesh has all these other things going on in it apart from just light brown, dark brown. So I really like playing around with color. I do some of my paintings upside down, and that's, again, me releasing control.
Explain that. What do you mean?
This professor brought this to me once when I was in high school, and he was just like, if you're working on a face and it's not coming out right, just turn it upside down. Once you stop trying to paint a face and you just paint what's in front of you, you'll end up with the likeness of whatever you're painting. And then, so that's how that started. But now, whenever I realize that I need to, like, release control, release control, allow myself to be led by the Spirit and not by what I technically know how to do, because I've been doing it for all these years, I'll turn it upside down.
You turn it upside
Turn it
down.
upside
And then
down.
how do you, so your students are mixing their own colors
They're
as
mixing,
you are. And what about,
yes.
texture of hair and
Yeah,
things like that? What do
so
you,
I've used, well, mostly I like to use anything that feels like black hair. So that's obsidian. I've used asphalt, which is like, what makes the street outside.
Really?
Mixing that in with glitter, diamond dust, pieces of jewelry, like that gives that like really tiny, those tiny little circles that
Right.
kind of look like the edges of my hair. So I like playing around with those things. I mix them together. I started adding mustard seeds
Wow.
a few years ago because I always saw, scriptural references to mustard seeds. I read about mustard seeds in the Bible, but I never stood in front of mustard seeds until a few years ago. And they're these tiny little things. And I'm like, if this is what equates to faith according to the Word of God, like I have to put this into the paintings, especially
the mustard seed.
yeah,
right?
especially when I'm painting people who've, displayed resilience and perseverance and all that stuff.
Right,
The gold leaf as
Gold
well.
leaf, right? So you're using
Collage,
everything, and
fabric.
you can do all of this because you live in an artist's community. So you're doing this at home with David cooking and your son Favor,
Literally, it goes from the kitchen to the living room to the art studio to the bedroom.
right?
And I have headphones, which is how I pretty much survive because they
Right.
love watching movies and film. And I don't really, I'm a worship sermon painter. I don't
look
really
at
want
thi-
any
look
other
at
noise.
this now.
Yeah,
this is
right.
Favor. He's helping you measure the size.
That's when he thought I was his assistant.
Yeah,
Because
he
he'd
wa-
come to the studio and I would get nothing done at all.
You were helping him with his work, right? But the gigantic size, I'm always happy when I see women artists painting in enormous sizes, because for so many years we were constrained. If you look at a lot of the early work, it's in the tiniest, space, and you were gigantic.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
went big. I started working big when I was 15, and I haven't
Right.
been able to go back. It actually takes me longer to make a small painting. Like,
Really?
whenever we're like talking about making new work or if someone's interested, we're like, all right, 30 by 40, 24 by 36, the absolute smallest, because it takes me longer to work small than
Right.
it does. I can paint probably an entire room faster than I can paint an 18 by 24 painting, which makes no sense. But
Right,
that's
right.
just
Well,
what it is.
I do want to, because of you, I was rereading the information about Khalif Browder, the young teenager that you painted, and you actually painted his mother, a photo, a
times.
picture of his mother.
That's his mom when she was younger.
When she was younger. And this had just fallen out of my consciousness of how tragic this story was. Tell us about Khalif and how you came to.
Yeah, I was really interested in Khalif's story because I've spent, from 2018 up until now. So you mentioned that I teach at a college, but I also just got hired by New York City Health and Hospitals as an art therapist to work with individuals in the mental observation units on Rikers. So I've been in and out of Rikers, teaching art, volunteering, doing the Faith Reentry program. Yes, and then
Right.
I was an intern there when I was in grad school.
Right.
So I've worked with a lot of young people there. I was there before they raised the age, and so Khalif's story was very dear to me and near because it felt like it could have been the story of any of the young people I had worked with.
Right. So for people who don't know, Rikers is not really a prison. It's just a holding place. So
Where
no
you're
one.
detained.
Many of the
you-
people, including
it's a
Khalif,
trial.
was 16 years old when he
Right.
was arrested for stealing a backpack. 16, and he went into Rikers and
then
stayed there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
700
and
of
that's-
those days in isolation.
Yeah, and that is pretty normal based on some of the other people that I've sat down with, especially when COVID happened. Like
Right.
cases were just on hold for like 2 years. Like no one was going to court, and progressively it was getting worse. And so I actually met his brother, Akeem Browder, who I think was also in politics at some point.
Right.
And at that point, his mom was still alive, and he was working on his campaign, and then unfortunately she passed away due to heart failure. And so I wanted to, as a part of an ongoing series I had been doing, painting mothers of victims of police brutality, mothers of victims of injustice, I incorporated her portrait into that as well.
And we should add that Khalif wound up, after he got out after 3 years, committing suicide, as his family said, by that experience of being in isolation for 700 straight days.
Yeah.
Having been convicted of nothing.
Yeah.
They described him as a broken man. And, because of the work that you're doing, his story and so many of the others are being remembered. I mean, so thank you so much. Now, the work with the mental health work that you're doing at Rikers, what is that like?
So, art therapy, it's very close to, so I've been a teaching artist for like over a decade. I've been facilitating art classes, different ages, but I think specifically there, doing art at Rikers comes with its own unique challenges and restrictions, even just like with the supplies that you can bring in. And so it's a lot of reinventing the same art supplies over and over and over again.
Over and over again.
And finding interesting ways to get people to express themselves.
Right.
And so the goal is really to provide a safe space. So that means, like, let me break down a session. A session is me checking in the bubble, making sure that like it's safe to go out on the floor that day.
Right.
Grabbing a speaker. There's a USB with music.
Right.
I prefer the worship instrumentals. Every now and then I'll take requests, which is usually just like
Right.
beats to
Sure.
rap over,
Right.
which is like fine, but that can get really distracting when you're
Right.
trying to do art therapy. So
you've set the scene for people
set the
to...
scene. So you bring the music in. We start with the check-in, which is just like small piece of paper. How are you showing up today? And that can be a word, that can be a picture, that could be you ripping up the paper and being like, I don't even feel like being here.
Right.
And honestly, we count everything a win. So if someone comes and sits down and does nothing, they still came to art therapy. If someone speaks for the first time, if someone leaves halfway because they're not feeling it, it's fine.
Right.
So
Well,
a lot of it is really just allowing them to express themselves, but then like once you build relationships, then you can go a step further. So like
Sure.
I've gone from regular art therapy groups to like designing a mural based on the stuff we were doing for like 6 months, and then having them help paint it. And
Right.
now, there's like a little form of escape on their wall that they designed and illustrated.
Right. Well, you are a remarkable person, and thank you for thanking God for your gift. We thank you for your gift as well. Tell us what we're going to see in your show when people...
Ooh, okay. The show. The show will have about 15 of my new paintings.
I think David is planning on maybe 18, but anyway.
Right.
Anyway, so 15 pieces of portraits and sculpture.
Portraits and sculpture, people who have been a part of my journey, from, my best friend's grandmother, who was like the first person to kind of be like, all right, this is how you study the word at church, to political prisoners who I've visited while they were in, and now they can visit me at my house because they're free. I would love to incorporate, like right now, I'm in the talks of potentially incorporating a portrait of Leisha Garner, Eric Garner's sister, who has been extremely supportive of my work over the years. People I used to dance with in dance ministry. And then the sculptures, I don't even know where to start with them, but most of them are supposed to be participatory, things that you can immerse yourself in, and
Is there actually a confession booth?
yes, one of the sculptures that we're working on building is my version of a confessional booth. I've never actually been in, well, I've visited confessional booths, but I've never been inside of one. But essentially, you know, it really revolves around this constant need to die to myself as I do this work. There's going to be an audio component where you can actually hear me praying, because that's always been a part of my work, but it's always been the part that no one sees. And now it's going to get shared for the first time.
Oh, it's fantastic. And now how do people get to see it? How do they contact you, actually? Give us your contact.
Okay, so my contact. So first I'll share my Instagram, which is I am wet paint.
I am wet paint.
Yes. And then for inquiries, you can email sophiavictormanagement@gmail.com. And yeah, also like the work will be up from May 17th to June 14th. And if you're interested in seeing it and you don't make it to the opening, which is on May 17th, you can come by appointment. There'll be an artist talk on June 7th that's open to the public. And we're gonna have a paint event where you can actually like buy tickets and come and kind of do less of a sip and paint, more of like me walking you through a therapeutic painting experience on June 14th.
Wow.
So all of that will be.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. As we are closing, and you'll have to come back because
I would love to
enjoy
come
the
back.
conversation so much. Your advice to someone watching this who, no matter what age, you know, who thinks that they would like to be gifted or may have a gift or would like to paint.
If you have a gift and it's something that you cherish and want to foster, first advice is to do it when, as if no one is looking. Don't do it for people to see it. I started making work before you could share it on Instagram, and I think that sometimes that's the motive. But if you can get to a point where you know that you love this thing, regardless of if anyone ever sees it or notices it, then you're probably meant to do it. Second thing, I would say, don't focus on your gift being used for selfish purposes. Find out how your gift can serve others, because then you'll always have a reason to use it, and you'll also find purpose in doing that. And for me, 3, and this is for me and people like me, your gift does not belong to you, so don't take the glory for it. And that's what I'll leave with.
The glory goes to a higher authority.
That's right.
That's right. Well, Sophia Victor, thank you so much for being with us. The work is fantastic, and you have made so many terrific changes in our society and for the wrongly accused and incarcerated. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So it's Sophia Victor, activist, artist. You can catch her show, Ecclesia, at the Bishop Gallery. It's now through June 14th. And for more information about the exhibit or to inquire about her work, you can email sophiavictormanagement@gmail.com. And that's it for us at this time. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America. We'll see you the next time. And now you can download the CUNY TV app in your Apple Store or in Google Play and find us there.